Thank you. What a day it was. I feel that speaking at the end of it, it's a privilege, it's an honor. But at the same time, today we heard so many inspirational talks, ideas. I feel like a job change for me. And trust me, I'm highly devoted to space sector. And today I want to share my vision of a space exploration history. It's going to be very subjective choice of people and actions, but I hope you will pick up something out of it. So, how it started? Like everything, out of wonder. People always wonder. They look at the stars, they look at the surrounding, and they wonder how far those stars are, why we see the light of it, how the life it's created on the earth, how the earth looks like. And through the history and those questions, they try to apply knowledge, they try to develop tools to understand it, to bring some more tangible actions to what it surrounded. And in the history, we have many people about who we don't remember anymore. Those names are not in our history books. Nevertheless, we wouldn't be where we are today without the pursuit of understanding, without their actions on sharing knowledge. Often they were teachers, they were mathematicians, philosophers, astronomers. They challenge others to go further, to understand more, to try new tools. And space exploration history is also a history of testing, trying and testing. And it shows that we shouldn't be afraid of it, because without it, we are nowhere. The names that you see on the slide are ancient philosophers, astronomers, and among them is Hypatia, one you might know from the movie dedicated to her. Although she wasn't the only woman working in understanding of what's going on and what is surrounding the earth and her environment. Moreover, ancient Greek are not the only nation back then who was working on understanding our universe. There are some people, there are some books or works that we can find today, for example, from Asia. Like back then, there was no Zoom, no Teams, so they couldn't connect like we can right now. And I just think how wonderful and where we would be if those great minds of ancient time would meet and share knowledge and discuss and go further. That would be amazing. And then we have Middle Age. Not much happened, although everyone knows Copernicus and his work. He wasn't the only one who believed it is not the Earth who is in the center of the universe, but the sun. That idea came up back in ancient times. However, Middle Age have his names for the reason. So let's go to the 17th century. I find it very interesting that people know Copernicus. Some of them know that we had also Hevelius, who lived in Gdańsk, but not many people know that Hevelius had a wife, who was also an astronomer. And when he was old and sick, she was his second wife and way younger. It was her who took care of the observatory, who cataloged the universe. And she was also devoted to cataloging, to observing stars, to understanding how the universe works. Another astronomer of our Polish nation is Maria Kunic, who lived in Silesia. I'm giving you those names, I'm sharing those names because even though we don't talk about those people, they were dedicated. And it's often in the large projects that many people work on something, many people pursue the dream, but we know only a few of them. Despite that, their work is also very important. Another team of people, great astronomers, was Pickering Karen, or as they are called, Harvard Computers. It's a team of around 80 women who were hired by Edward Pickering. He was frustrated by his male colleagues and his assistant, and he said that my Scottish mate would do better job. That was a time when astrophotography started, and Harvard Observatory was flooded by data. They didn't know even how to start cataloging, how to start working with such a large number of data. And Pickering, as a head of the department, was simply frustrated. So he actually hired his Scottish mate. Funny enough, he paid her barely anything. And when I prepared myself for this speech, I found that he, or Harvard University, paid almost nothing to the most of these 80 people. And in one case, I found even explanation of this case. Because she was financial independent, they didn't have to pay her. How different world it is. Nevertheless, we are still working with their catalogs. We are still using their knowledge. And without them, the astronomy wouldn't speed up that much as it did thanks to them. Finally, we have dreams about space travels. We have literature and science fiction that help people dreaming about going further, going to the space, exploring by themselves celestial bodies. And one of those people who believed in this dream was Werner von Braun. He's well known as the father of Apollo mission, Apollo program, and he laid out the grounds of rocketary science as we know now. But he started as a kid, with just wandering and playing around with propulsion and building rockets, and he created an association, Space Traveler Association in Wrocław, actually. So another connection with Poland. Finally, we get to the orbit. Human being went to the orbit and orbited the Earth. That's Yuri Gagarin, about whom you might have heard of. But again, it wasn't only one person who worked on that. It was a large number of people on both continents that were working on making it happen. And as often it is in case of space exploration, the fuel for that was the race between the US, as we say, the democracy, and communistic regimes, so USSR. Yuri Gagarin went to the orbit, and we celebrate this in April that's our holiday, Space People Holiday, that we finally made it happen. And then another great achievement. People went to the moon, the first step on the moon. Before that happened, we sent robots, we sent rovers to understand better what's going on there, because from the space, you cannot observe everything. So we tested again. Human being on the moon. We know only one, Neil Armstrong. We remember his name. He is in the textbooks, but he wasn't the only one who made that happen. Large amount of people were dedicated to making it happen. There is this joke in space sector that, or maybe it's a legend, I should say, that President Kennedy set up this very ambitious goal, saying, we are going to the moon, just a few days after first American was on the orbit. There was no proof that it can happen. I mean, they launched the feasibility studies, but it's not like they had technology in place. I bet there's feasibility studies said, oh, you need to develop this, that, and this. Like you have barely nothing. But he set up the goal. Very, very readable, very clear KPI, going to the moon. And he devoted a large amount of the budget. He devoted resources, land to build centers, people, And finally, he's walking, that's the legend. He's walking through one of NASA centers and he sees a person, Black American, cleaning the corridor. And he's asking, and what you are doing? And this cleaning guy is saying, me? I'm sending first American to the moon. Because that was a very clear goal, very clear value. We want to compete. We want to be the first nation on the moon. And everyone was united to make that happen. That was years ago, 50-something years ago, that we as a human being went to the moon. And now we are talking again about going back to the moon. We are working on Artemis mission that will enable first female and first Black American to go to the moon. Because we want to understand better the environment. We want to understand the creation of the universe and what can happen to the Earth, how the Earth is behaving. Out of our wonder and our pursuit of understanding what's going on, we launch numerous missions. They are created by scientists with scientific hypotheses to check. But human beings exceeded a bad own expectation. We are going further to the end of our solar system and closer to the sun to understand, for example, the weather, the patterns, sun weather, how it influences our electronic system, for example, phones that we are all using. We are, our civilization created a spacecraft that went to the comet. Right now, we know even how to take something out of the comet and bring it back to the Earth. That's marvelous. Those missions that you can see on the slides are just European Space Agency mission, which means we also contribute to those missions. And I'm proud to say that Polish scientists and engineers contribute to most of the missions. And with our ambition, we can go further. Of course, ESA is not the only agency that it's working on scientific mission. For example, here you can see NASA missions. And again, NASA, ESA are not the only one. We have JAXA, we have Roscosmos, we have many other missions. And sometimes we even get united to work together. For example, like in the mission of Mars sample return mission, where ESA, European Space Agency, and American Space Agency are working to bring the sample back to the Earth. And just imagine the spacecraft, when it's launched to the Mars, it takes around 9 months to reach the Mars. And landing on the Mars, it's extremely hard. So far, only Americans achieved that. And now we are talking about bringing sample of the surface to understand what happened to Mars, if there could be water or anything that can help us with propulsion system and building the colony on Mars. So many interesting questions in our wonders. What happens if human beings is on Mars? How we can make the base sustainable? But that's not the most ambitious task we are working on. I'm proud to say and introduce you to my colleague, Professor Romana Radkiewicz. Ms. Professor is working on interstellar mission here in Poland. She's also working in educating the next generation of human exploration professionals. She's working on understanding what is at the end of our universe, what is at the end of our solar system, and how our universe is created. And you might think why we are even talking about that, why we are developing so many technologies, we are working on so many missions, and trust me, we are not still, it's not enough, but why we discuss it. So let me tell you that scientific missions are not the only missions we are working on. We are also working on understanding better the Earth. how human beings influence the Earth, how we are changing it, how we can protect it. One of the ways that we are doing it is through building the navigation and positioning system, which is commonly known as GPS. And thanks to space technology, thanks to the resources that we have on the orbit, we can easily get from point A to B. And we all know how it works. But not many people know that thanks to the same system, we can synchronize watches in banks and stock, which is very, very helpful and might lead to huge problems if they are not synchronized and the information is not flowing. Another very valuable system that we are working on is satellite communication. Some of you might remember there were times when where we didn't have Netflix and Disney Plus. Today it's a lot of about Disney, but we had satellite TV streamed through the satellite. And now we are not using the system anymore. However, secure connectivity brought by satellites are used by military, by, for example, people who hike to the highest mountains and in remote places. Satellite communication is bringing doctors to people who have no terrestrial network and they cannot reach hospitals, and it's bringing schools to the people that cannot travel or commute to school because it's just too far away. Finally, Earth observation. We have numerous data from the orbit going back to the Earth to understand the environment and to help us create more sustainable world. Data like satellite imagery can be used not only in farming, but for example, in planning cities, because we better understand humans' behaviors from the orbit. And another system that we have on the orbit is weather satellites that help us predict weather. And I know it's not always accurate, but trust me, without satellite, it would be even worse. So we are not that bad. And you can reach all those data, historical data from Earth observation and weather, thanks to European Commission funding and thanks to other organizations that make it happen. And very important is to understand that there is no limit. I was introduced that sky is not a limit for me, but I feel like sky is not the limit for anyone. With all those data, it's just up to people what we can do, how we can understand them, how we can use them. Because I highly believe that thanks to space data, we can improve our organization. We can improve our daily lives. However, we also have to protect this infrastructure that we have on orbit. Here you can see something which we called space debris. Those are not working satellites. For example, only 33% of satellites are working. Some of them are not. And it is because they lost fuel, they lost communication, and they are orbiting still the Earth. And space debris are also parts of rockets, because rockets, when we launch the rocket, it's opening and it's basically disseminating, for example, satellites. But those parts are called space debris. We need to catalog them and understand where they are because they might be harmful. They might go back to the atmosphere and not burn fully, which might be harming for us here on the Earth, but also they can harm the largest laboratory and our only home that we have out of the Earth, which is called International Space Station. And Space Station is teaching us collaboration. I remember when Ukrainian war was up to the fire and everyone was, every space organization was cutting the connection with Roscosmos, Russian space agency. But ISS was the only thing that collaboration was still ongoing. I have a friend who used to work at NASA, and he worked like in negotiation of making ISS happen. And he says that space is the only thing that it's working, because even during the Cold War, when we had two nations fighting about for the place of pioneering the space exploration. They reach a bridge and they shake hand in space. So space may help us to learn how to collaborate, to bring nations together. But ISS, this laboratory, might be the answer, for example, to curing cancer or to finding the solution for transplantology. And I'm proud to say that we are working on making another Polish person working at the International Space Station. And we are working with Polish entities, scientific and entrepreneurs, to test the experiments and to use this facility to contribute to better understanding of human body, but also the technology. Finally, many technology, many solutions that you have at your home probably came from exploration of space. Space exploration history is also a history of improving one's life and on transfer of technology. We are still working on understanding what we can transfer, how we can use this technology. And once I asked someone who was working on the mission, like, why you are working on that? What human being will have out of it? And she said, we don't know yet. We will launch it. We will have data. We will have to make understanding out of this data. And we never know how humans will want to use this technology, how our imagination will connect the technology that is available with the problem that one wants to solve. And I think that there's no limits. It's only our imagination. And of course, it's very challenging. But at the same time, just imagine all this data, all these systems, and people before you who are working on making it happen. And you can simply start with wondering how I can solve this problem, what data I need to solve it, or wondering how something is working and bring the hypothesis to the mission. Again, you might think, okay, where she's going with that? Why she's telling me that at such a late time? So, firstly, there is no space exploration without taxpayer money, which means all these missions, all this data I was telling you about came out of your pocket. And I think it's important to know where our money goes. Secondly, you can find the solution. You can improve your business, your everyday life, or life of others thanks to space data. And I highly recommend to use it and to check, for example, Copernicus program. You can inspire others to go into tech or to start learning mathematics, technology, engineering, thanks to space. I'm working in the space sector for 8 years now. March is my celebration, my anniversary, so 8 years. Wow. My longest relationship. And I never met a person who would be not interested in space, because we are wondering as human beings, we are curious, and space is using this curiosity, and it's helping bringing people in united goal. It's helping to take talents and tell them, we are going to the moon, even though we have no proof or no technology in place. Finally, I'm telling you that because it's my sanctuary. Last year, I was privileged to attend Leadership of the 21st Century class at Harvard. So the smartest place ever, I was thinking. And there was a team of 80 people attending this class. Most of them working in solving like truly amazing problems that we are facing. For example, domestic violence or hunger in Africa. And those 80 people, we were wondering how we can solve our our lives. We are leaders and we face challenge because someone from work it's making us in trouble. We are facing troubles with our employees. We meet needs of our family. There is always someone wanting something from us, always pushing us. And at the same time, we have to be always ready, always up to being a servant, smiling and with full strength and like hope that everything is going all right. And it's hard. We have to protect ourselves. And how you can do that if you are facing a challenge like, okay, I can have a sleep, but as well, I can work on domestic violence to increase the number in my state. So we were sharing those fears and these challenges with our professor, Tim O'Brien, and he looked at us and he's like, you need to find your sanctuary. And we're like, what? That's a complex problem. Like, give us something more complex than you need to find your sanctuary. But the truth is, when the world is overwhelming, we need to find a place where we can start with something small, with small step, and we will go further. And space is like that. You don't explore space with starting a large spacecraft. You are starting with something small, asking questions, wondering. I wonder what if on the moon there is water. I wonder what happened with the universe. And then you build your case step by step. My sanctuary is space exploration. It brings me calmness because also from this space, from the orbit, you don't see borders, but you can see war. You don't see one person, but you can see the beautiful technology that one person was able to create when it's cooperating, when it's sharing information and sharing values. So I hope that thanks to space, you will find your sanctuary. And if you choose space or anything else, please share that with me. Thank you.